President Biden has made an impassioned speech in defense, he said, of American democracy. He warned that Donald Trump and what he termed MAGA Republicans represent a form of extremism that threaten the American way of life. He also urged all Americans to come together to defend democracy regardless of their ideology. Our US correspondent Peter Bowes reports.
A historic setting for a speech that pulled no punches. A primetime address from Philadelphia, the birthplace of American democracy. A way of life that Joe Biden says is under threat from Donald Trump and his supporters.
We must be honest with each other and with ourselves. Too much of what's happening in our country today is not normal. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
It was a full-throated attack on the former president and the campaign Donald Trump calls Make America Great Again.
MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards to an America where there is no right to choose, no right to privacy, no right to contraception, no right to marry who you love.
Mr. Biden lashed out at those supporters of Donald Trump that fan the flames of political violence, the mob that stormed the United States Capitol. The speech reflected recent comments by the president where he's described the MAGA philosophy as semi-fascism.
History tells us that blind loyalty to a single leader and a willingness to engage in political violence is fatal to democracy.
It's just over 2 months before Americans go to the polls to elect new members of Congress. This was Joe Biden setting out his stall for what could be a vicious campaign.
I will not stand by and watch. I will not the will of the American people be overturned by wild conspiracy theories and baseless evidence-free claims of fraud. I will not stand by and watch elections in this country stolen by people who simply refuse to accept that they lost.
It was a dark message focused on his political opponent. But Joe Biden also said he'd never been more optimistic about America's future. We're only just beginning, he said. But was it enough to win over some of Donald Trump's supporters?
I have to say, I think Biden put himself in a difficult position here because he's making a bet that the roughly 35% of Americans who still believe in this lie that the 2020 election was stolen will never vote for him anyway, so he doesn't need their votes and he can go all in on this MAGA Republican message.
The scene is set for a midterm election campaign like no other, with huge consequences for Donald Trump's Republicans and Joe Biden's presidency. Peter Bowes, BBC News.
Well, former President Trump has responded to President Biden's speech, writing, if he doesn't want to make America great again, which through words, action and thought he doesn't, then he certainly should not be representing the United States of America. And he added that President Biden must be insane or suffering from late-stage dementia. Journalist Sidney Blumenthal, a former senior advisor to President Bill Clinton and longtime confidant of Hillary Clinton, gave his thoughts about President Biden's speech.
Not since Abraham Lincoln has a president delivered a speech like this, declaring that there was a fundamental threat to American democracy that was internal, not external, and that encompassed the other party, and more than that, the Supreme Court, which sees itself as a bulwark of reactionary partisanship, rescinding basic American rights, which we saw in the overturning of Roe v. Wade. This was Biden's launch of the midterm campaigns to attempt to retain democratic control of the Congress.